Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Woodard Report podcast. We have been trying to get together Debra Kilsheimer for quite a while, and you're finally here. I'm super excited. Welcome to the Woodard Report podcast.
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. And most of our community, so many people in our community know you, Debra. You're a superstar. You have this presence that you know that Debra's there, and you're just one of the most
keep
positive
talking, Heather.
people.
Keep talking.
Right. I know. But for those of you that are not familiar with Debra, Debra is a top 10 pro advisor. She's a Woodard CAS practice winner, Intuit Accountant Council alumni. And also she has a practice that she owns with her husband, Hal, in Port Orange, Florida, called Behind the Scenes. And your newest venture, which isn't new at all anymore, Debra, is Bookkeepers on Fire, which you do with Donna Reed, which is just a wonderful podcast. If you have not checked out Bookkeepers on Fire, it's so much fun. And you guys have done over 100 episodes now, which is amazing in the relatively short time that you guys have been doing it. So,
well, we just celebrated our 2-year anniversary.
Yeah,
that's 2 amazing. Years we've been doing it.
Yeah,
we have fun doing it every week, and I have to give all the credit to Donna. I always say she does all the work, and I show up. I'm the talent.
That's the best kind of partnership, right?
But it's a lot of fun.
So tell me, Debra, why did you and Donna start Bookkeepers on Fire, and what is it that you're bringing to our community through the podcast?
Well, we always wanted to do. I mean, I saw Donna, how we see all of us out in the accounting space, and I thought, boy, this girl's smart. And
Yes.
I was being interviewed for a podcast called Friday Night Accountants or Friday Night Lights on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it was done by Brad and Andrew. Of course, they were on the West Coast, so me being on the East Coast, it was 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope I can stay up. And they go, you really have to meet this Donna Reed. She reminds me of you. You remind me of her. And she comes on, and she usually shows up after the show. And she did. Well, Donna and I got to start talking, and the two guys just left. So then I forget when that was, but then I was at Intuit Connect, and I'm in the vendor hall walking around, and I said, I think that's Donna Reed. And I walked up to her and I said, hey, I'm Debbie Kilsheimer. Do you want to do something together? And yeah. Well, it took her 6 months to finally contact me, because she said, I was kind of intimidated a little bit, and I texted her back, and I said, am I that scary? So I said, let's just do something. So we thought, well, let's try this podcast idea. And, I like to knit, and I like this one knitting podcast where they would answer knitting questions.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, let's just answer accounting questions. People come up on Facebook and they go, how do you pay a bill? How do you do this? So that was our initial idea. So we started doing the podcast around that. And then she goes, let's do a YouTube. I go, okay. So she got that all set up, and we first started just talking to each other. And I thought, well, this is kind of dull. Who wants to hear us talk to each other? So I said, the name of the whole show is called Bookkeepers on Fire. Why don't we interview bookkeepers and accountants in our industry and give them a space to really amplify what they do and what we do? So we thought that was a great idea. So our first guest was Janice Barcelo, and she was kind enough to come on. Everybody knows Janice. Mm-hmm. And so we just, I know you've been on the show, and everybody, when they come on,
we had so much fun. It was one of the funnest podcasts I've ever been on. So
yeah, because there's no agenda. There's no script. Right. So they go, well, what are we going to talk about? I go, oh, don't worry. We'll find something. I said, it's just 3 friends talking, and everybody, I don't know what I'm going to talk about for 30 minutes. I go, don't worry. I mean, and all of a sudden the time's up, or we go longer. And I remember Hector was on one time, and he goes, now I have a hard stop. And I'm like, okay. He kept right. I said, Hector, you told me you had a hard stop. That's okay. He kept going.
That's Hector all over, for sure.
Yeah. But we really want to amplify and promote, the everyday us who's out there, that we really do make a difference in people's lives by doing what we do. So that was always our purpose. It wasn't to highlight the big superstars, like you and Ron Baker and Hector. And It was to amplify the newest people that are starting, the people that they don't know they exist, other than their clients and their family, to say, we're just regular people out there all trying to do the same thing. And I think it's been pretty successful.
No, and it has, and it's just it's a joyful podcast to listen to. It's a lot of fun. You guys are a total hoot. And
Yeah,
yeah, so definitely, yeah, it was great. So, you're talking about being the superheroes to our clients. And yes, that's true. I mean, I ran into a client, Debra, just a couple of weeks ago at a restaurant. I'd taken my kids out for dinner, and I ran into one of my clients from like the early 2000s, like the 2000s. She had a dance studio. And when she saw me, she actually had tears in her eyes. And I was like,
wow.
I mean, I love her. She's amazing. Her name's Ellen, and she's just brilliant. She's a brilliant dance instructor, just a wonderful human. But you don't realize how much. And what she turned to her husband, she said, Heather saved me. Heather,
Exactly.
and they really do value, what you do. And you think you're just punching in the numbers and reconciling accounts and having the hard, conversations. And you don't realize how impactful just you being in their lives and taking care of the things that really scare them, right? And making them less scary. And I think that's where the real value is.
Right.
Yeah.
I always think, everybody started their business because they had a dream and a reason.
Mm-hmm.
But then, reality sets in. Oh, you mean I have to do accounting too and run it as a business? And that's the thing they don't like. And that's okay, because we do.
Right.
So when I meet new clients, I say, look, my goal is to help your vision happen. I take
Yeah.
care of all the stuff you don't want to take care of. For example, I have a house. I live in a house. I hate cleaning it, but I like a
Same.
clean house. So I pay for someone to clean it. I'm the one that's going to do the stuff you don't like doing,
That's
because
right.
I love it. So your job to work with me is to tell me what it is you want. If I don't know what you want, I can't help you get it. And I said,
Mm-hmm.
and the goal is not to pay no tax. I said, if you want to pay no tax, I'll give you a piece of advice right here. Just quit.
Right. If you don't make income, you can't pay tax on it, right?
Right. I said, there's a street corner, on International Speedway that you could stand on with the sign. That guy probably doesn't pay tax.
Well, he should pay tax because
He
technically
should,
that's
because he's probably
taxable.
making money. But nevertheless,
Right.
so if you want, my goal is to have you write the biggest, largest tax check you have ever written in your life and be happy doing it. And they go,
Yeah.
and they look at me like I'm a wackadoo. And I go, because that means you've made money. So you have to tell me what it is you want to do. So then the next question I say is, if you had $1 million, what would you buy? What would you spend it on? What would you do?
Yeah.
And they say, well, I'd pay college for my kids. I'd go on vacation. I'd have annual passes there's their dream and what their business wants them to do. It's beyond making a profit. The profit allows them to create the life that they want. Well, you got to find out what the answer to that question. It's beyond how much money do you make? Okay, you can make a lot of money being a drug dealer. I don't know, people want to do that. So
Right.
what is it that you want to do with the money you're making from the thing you like doing every day?
Yeah.
And say, okay, I can make that happen. You want to pay for kids' college, and life changes throughout. I mean, if they're young parents, they might want to just be able to stay home with their kids and go to the soccer game every day. As they get older, like right now for us, we have 4 grandkids. We're putting money aside for their college. I never
Mm-hmm.
would have thought I could make enough money in my business to be able to pay for 4 college educations.
That's amazing.
So that's, what is it that they want from their business? So that's what
Yeah.
I like to keep in front of them. So when we talk about, gee, I see you're going to a Starbucks a lot, that means your kid's not going to be able to go to kindergarten this year. Oh, I mean, so what it is they want, so they can pull back on something,
Yeah.
talk about it. I like to talk about bigger picture issues. So it drives me
Yeah.
absolutely bonkers when, as accountants, we worry about the cost of the QuickBooks software or whatever software we're using. No, that's the brains of your business. If they
Right.
can't afford a QuickBooks Online subscription, they'll close their doors. Stop stepping over
Right.
dollars to pick up dimes. Start talking about increasing their prices, doing better customer service. So that's the kind of stuff I like doing. We make that big a difference in people's lives. And that's what we need to be talking about and with our customers. And then they go, wow, they will cry when they see it.
Right.
Wow, you helped me become rich. If it wasn't for you, this wouldn't have happened. And that's how we get paid. That's the priceless value of what we do. And they
Absolutely.
will pay for it. I mean, I think if people will go to Morton's Steakhouse and Ruth Chris Steakhouse when there's a McDonald's they could go to, what it about those places that makes them want to spend the money? You be Ruth Chris, you be Morton's, you be Louis Vuitton. Don't be McDonald's. There's room for McDonald's, but I want to
Absolutely.
have, my thing is lifestyle and how many hours I want to work. So I thought I'm going to go after people that really see what it is I do and the difference I can make. And that's what we do for customers. And I
I
think
love
we
that.
need to be better at telling them that.
I could not agree more, Deborah. I've said that for years. With my team, I had them keep a wins checklist for every client. That was, every dollar that we saved, whether it was you found a check that processed through the bank. That doesn't happen very often anymore, but it can happen. Check clears the bank twice. You find it during bank rec, you reach out to the bank, they get the money, we save them that money, right? If there's a discount they didn't take on their payables and you bring it to their attention, that's money we saved.
Right.
If you any piece of advice where you're building wealth, jot it down. And then
Right.
when
And
you
it
meet with
doesn't
the
have to be
client,
just you save them money or tax.
it
It's, gee,
doesn't.
you can get to go to the kids' soccer game today.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, you get to
Very
go on a
true.
cruise. Okay, where do you want to go on vacation this year? Where do you want to go? Well, I'd like to take a cruise. Okay, how much is that going to cost? $5,000. Okay, if we put aside this much money every week, we could do that. So
Mm-hmm.
what are we willing to give up? Well, if you went to Wawa's instead of Starbucks, you could have the money saved and pay cash. And
Yeah.
they look, if you raised your prices by $10, talk them through the price. Oh, if I raise
Right.
my prices, nobody will buy. That's not so.
Mm-mm.
So that you advise them and talk to them through that stuff. But you have to know what it is they want, and then be in front of it. If something happens, like in the world of like accounting space or whatever, like the no tax on tips. I mean, how many of us called up and said, "Let me tell you about the no tax on tips rule."
Mm-hmm. Right.
Or let me tell you about this is coming up. This is something we need to be aware of. Blah blah blah. You're anticipatory with what's going on in the world. So, and they go, oh, my last, because they talk to each other. They have friends.
Mm-hmm.
And well, my accountant just called me up and told me about the new tax on tips rule or an overtime rule or whatever. My accountant didn't. Maybe you
Right.
should change accountants. And I tell them
Right.
that. I said, if you tell
Yeah.
your friends, tell them maybe you should change accountants.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yep.
happens a lot. So I don't know. I just think this business makes such a difference and it's fun. Now,
It
and
is
I tell you
fun.
what, AI, my new boyfriend, makes it funner.
Yeah.
I don't
It
know how. Now you can take information that we used to scramble for, like, oh, my sales taxes. Something's not right with my sales tax. All right. So I used to go through and look at the report, the detail, and figure it all. That would take me half a day. Now I go, okay, Chat GPT, or I now use Claude mostly. Tell me where the problem is. Oh, these 4 invoices, sales tax wasn't calculated correctly. Here's what I suggest the customer does. Whatever. Okay, write me a nice, executive summary so I can send them. Literally takes 30 minutes. Of course, I
Mm-hmm.
wait a day to send it so they don't think I just did it in 10 minutes. So
Right. Right.
I'll tell you what, it's fun. Just this morning, Hal comes in, he says, gee, I wonder how I did this year with my tax returns compared to last year to this year. I said, well, let me find out. So I ran the report. I threw it up into ChatGPT or Claude. Tell me who's paid, who's not, what the difference in price is, blah, blah, blah. Check your work, make sure it foots. And so I gave him the report. He goes, you did all this? And yes, I did.
Yep. Yeah. It's incredible. It's incredible.
It's
It
just fun.
absolutely is changing the way that we work, and it's going to continue to change the way that we
Right. So what
work.
happens
Um,
is you're now not doing the drudgery stuff. Okay. Like
right.
just use this report from Hal, for example. Now we could sit down and look at what's the meaning of the numbers. Gee, we haven't raised prices like that, or this is our pricing structure. Who are we going to get? Now we're talking strategy and how to run our firm instead of me sitting there figuring out, the data piece. Now we're doing strategy pieces. That's what AI allows you to do because the
It
thinking,
does.
the judgment, the insight, AI cannot do that. They can't
It's
sit
keeping
down
you
with the customer and go through what they know they want to go to the soccer game or have the annual passes to Disney or whatever. They can't sit there and hold your hand as they're struggling to, they can make payroll or how can we do this? It can give you ideas, but it's kind of like when you go to a doctor. You can get a lab report and go look it up on WebMD, but I want a doctor to tell me I have cancer.
right.
I don't want, WebMD to tell me. I want a doctor to tell me. So and people crave human connection. That's the thing AI cannot do.
That's
And
right.
people really, I think in this business, they aren't buying tax returns, bank recs, financial statements. They are paying for the relationship they have with you. So all
Yeah.
these PE firms coming in and looking at you do 100 tax returns for this much money, and then they go buy your firm, and all of a sudden all the customers leave. They're doing the same product. What was the difference? The difference was they didn't establish the relationship that you built with these people.
Right.
So that's the value, is the relationship that you have with people. It's not the product. It's not the
Yeah.
tax return. It's that you sit there and you talk to them for half an hour. They tell you about their year, how things going, what do you see, all the doctor's appointments they had, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Hal will sit there and talk to them for 20 minutes, 30 minutes before he even starts a tax return because he wants to find out about them. And then he says, well,
And
okay,
it's
well, let's
important
get
to
down
do
to
that.
work.
It's building
Pardon?
trust, right? It's building
Yeah.
trust. Yeah.
And they love it. And
Yeah,
they
they do.
keep coming back,
Yeah.
and that's what we're selling. So when you realize that it's not the bank rec, the perfection of the books, the tax, it's the relationship you've established to help them feel safe, secure, and seen and heard will make your business thrive.
You're talking a lot about, the relationships and, we're talking about, helping them support their dreams. And you touched a little bit on difficult conversations, like that conversation that you talked about, you're spending too much on coffee, right? When you actually could be, cutting down your coffee and using that money somewhere else. You're teaching a session this June at Scaling New Heights on handling difficult conversations with language, courage, and clarity for accountants. And I think that is something that holds, the conversations, the hard conversations are really what are holding a lot of our peers back from stepping into the advisory role because, no one likes confrontation, or very few people enjoy confrontation. There's certainly people out there that do, but most of us don't. And so when we think about, a situation, I know throughout my 30-year career, I've definitely had to have really tough conversations with my clients, and that's hard. So you're going to be teaching in June, kind of giving some advice on how you can almost standardize that process within your firm to empower you to be able to have those conversations and make it a little less daunting. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I think, accountants love checklists. And I remember when
Yes.
I started, I was a CPA, became a CPA, and I thought this job stinks with hourly billing and all this so I quit and I went and sold Mary Kay Cosmetics. I never wore makeup. I never was in sales. I mean, nothing. I'm thinking I'm doing a completely 180 from being a CPA.
Did you get the
And
pink Cadillac? That's
yeah,
my
I had the pink
question.
Cadillac.
You did. Wow.
I
Good
did.
for you,
I
Deb.
had the pink
Wow.
Cadillac. I had the Bumblebee. I have a mink coat. I mean, all that stuff.
Wow.
That
That's
Mary Kay would give
awesome.
away as prizes. But I was really
I'm
after
not
achievement.
surprised.
Yep, I've had the pink Cadillac. I remember when we had my daughter, who's now 41. My husband drove up with the pink car and he goes, the nurse says, I've seen a lot of things, but never somebody buying a pink car when they had a girl.
So fun.
But yes, I did have the pink Cadillac. But when I first started, I knew nothing about sales. So my friend Valerie Williams, she's still my friend to this day. She said, look, can you read? Yeah, I passed the CPA exam. What are you talking about? Just follow the directions. You say this, they say this. You say this, they say that. Oh, it's that. Yes. And then you'll learn when you listen in voice inflection, what they're saying, because somebody say, how are you? If I ask you, Heather, how are you? Go, I'm fine. Well, that doesn't sound like you're very fine, does it? If you say, well, I'm just fine. I'm fine. I mean, so voice inflection matters. So listen. And then if they, it's kind of like a flow chart. Say this, you move over here. Say this, you go over there. Say this. So I thought if you have the rules and the checklist, and then you have the confidence in your ability, I think all of us are brilliant and geniuses at what we do. We don't believe it though.
Mm-hmm.
So when you start to believe in your own genius, that you are smart, that you have the client's best interests at heart. And sometimes, just like if you're a mom or a dad, you sometimes have to tell your kids to eat their vegetables. You can't, you
Yeah.
want to be their friend, but you want to be their leader. And I think
Yeah.
as accountants, we have to take on the leadership role to lead them where they've told us they want to be. So I feel like I'm a leader of my clients. I'm not the follower. They don't tell me what they want. I tell them.
Right.
They say, well, I want to use this new app. Well, I had one the other day. I want to use a new time tracking app. To why? What's the matter with the one you have? I mean, she's going through it all. I go, well, we can look at different options. What's the purpose of wanting you to change? Well, I don't want to pay for it. I said, well, we could stop right there. Everything has a cost. So
Mm-hmm.
if you don't want to spend a lot of money for it, you're going to pay for it in time. So we talked through it. So that was a difficult conversation because she thought what she wanted. So when you
Right.
have a checklist and then just sit back and you listen and then respond to what they have to say, knowing what your end goal is, to yay or nay, or, yes, you can, then it becomes a little easier. And the other thing too, that's really fabulous about this business, again, it's a relationship business. You're not going to be perfect. And if
Mm-mm.
you say something wrong, say, oops, I gave you the wrong advice. Because frankly, if you have a choice A and a B, and you go, I really don't know which one to pick. I think A is better. So you give them advice A. And then you realize as time goes on, B would have been better. Did you make a mistake? No, because back then you thought A was better. You call them and say, you know what? After reflection and what we've discussed and what I've learned, B would have been a better choice. Let's adapt and make this change now.
Right.
So they go, oh, okay. But if you don't come with it, you don't say, then all of a sudden they go, well, my accountant never told me that. How come you didn't tell me
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah.
Because, well, I was afraid. I was afraid you wouldn't like me anymore. They will respect you. I don't want my clients to love me. I want them to respect me. And when they do, they will love you.
That's right. No, I agree. And I think that it's those hard conversations that build the true trust, right? And the more that you dig into those deeper conversations, the stronger that gets. So
Right. I
love
mean,
it.
just think it's like if you wanted to lose weight and you kept going to the Weight Watcher place, the diet doctor, and they said, well, I had birthday cake and I had, Easter's coming. I had to have my Easter candy and blah, blah. Well, then you're not, what's he going to say? Oh, well, I understand. No, I would have said, well, then you're never going to lose weight. Your
Right.
choice. I mean, do you really want to lose weight or not? Well, I really do. Well,
Mhm.
then you're going to have to make some decisions to not eat the candy. I know it's hard.
Yeah.
What can we do to help you not eat the candy? Keep track of what you're doing. Let's see what we can tweak, change, adjust, and make happen. That is a difficult conversation because no one wants to be told they can't have something. They're all
That's
little
right.
children wanting the candy bar and the lollipop, say, nope, can't have it. You want your teeth to rot? Then, you have to
Not
brush
good
your
for
teeth,
you. That's right.
so you just have to be, like firm because you know best. And if you don't know, tell them, I don't know, but I'll find out. You might not like what I have to say, but I'm going to tell you, hear my heart. I say that a lot. Hear my heart, which means I'm going to tell you something you don't like, but I try not to be mean. And, but if you have the scripts, which we're going to talk about in practice, and you get better with practice by avoiding it, you don't get any better. You
Yes.
never got good at riding a two-wheel bike because you never got on it. You know,
There's a quote that I actually use quite a bit from Albert Einstein, where he said, if he had an hour to solve a problem, he would spend 59 minutes gathering information and listening to others, and 1 minute to actually solve the problem. And I
exactly.
think that always resonates with me is that we're so quick, we want to solve the problem right away. And, it's, if you don't ask the questions, if you don't listen, if you don't gather all of the information, it's more likely you're going to make a bad decision, right?
And
So,
that is so
or
true of anything. Think about it.
yeah, for
We can
sure.
now do things so fast in QuickBooks Online or whatever GL software you're making because, the software, the bank feeds come in or the uploads, whatever. But how long did it take you to get that good and do the information? So like
Mhm.
when somebody was on Facebook or something the other day and the client went and looked in at the audit trail and the bookkeeper was in there 10 minutes. but he didn't see the 2 hours you spent figuring it out and thinking about it.
100%. Yeah.
So, that's why that hourly billing stuff stinks, because now you're only looking at the task. How
Yeah.
much time have you invested in making it look so simple? How much money have you invested in yourself by going to Scaling New Heights, for example?
Mhm.
It's not inexpensive. It's expensive to not go,
Right.
because by not going, you don't see what you're missing. Factor that into your budget so you have the money when, Joe offers the tickets to go. Figure out a way to
Mhm.
get there. I will tell you, the
Yeah.
biggest difference I have in my career is going to those conferences and seeing other people do. Oh, I could do that. You mean there's other people out here like me? I'm not by myself in my room. I think other people like to do bank reconciliations. Oh, I mean, it was thrilling seeing other people that got me.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
so
absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, there's also a validation when you go
Mhm.
of, especially if you're a solo practitioner or you lead a small team and you don't have other experts on a daily basis to kind of bounce ideas off of. Going to the conferences, it gives you that opportunity. And there's just something so comforting about going and, we all have those issues. We're like, did I do that right? Right? Did I take the right position on this particular thing, or are my workflows really optimized? And to talk with practitioners and repeat back, either somebody say, wow, that's amazing that you did that, I hadn't thought of that, and you're like, oh, or just somebody say, yeah, I do that too, is such that really makes you feel not alone and that you have a support system around you. And it's the community that I think is really the magic. I mean, our instructors are incredible, and the sessions that we deliver are incredible. What I love about it is that our instructors are also attendees. I mean,
Yeah,
they're in the sessions learning too,
they're
and it's the
us. We don't
community.
bring in these fancy schmancy instructors who have no concept of what it is we do. The
Hmm.
people that attend the conference, they're just like me and you. If you see me out at the conference or I see you at a conference, come up and say hi. We put on our
Yes.
pants the same way you do. We're walking around thinking everybody's better than us, like you all do. Oh, they have a better firm than me. They live in a better place. They probably charge more. They better. No, we all think about that each other. That's
Yeah,
the
we do.
danger. I think sometimes we think everybody's better than us when we go. No, we're all the same.
We're all the
And it's a
same. We're
very
all doing the
giving
best we can.
community.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know anybody that if you walked up to and say, "Can you tell me exactly how you price a client? How do you get your cost?" I think they'll sit down and think, somebody finally thought I had something to say.
Hmm. I
So don't
remember.
be afraid. Walk up. After a class, if you like to go up and ask questions of the instructor, or go. I mean, that's what I did. Sit in the front
Mhm.
row. I mean, that's one. We talked about Janice as our first guest. Janice is always at my class, sitting in the front row. Be a
Yep.
front row sitter like Janice.
Yes.
You
And
know,
ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask
don't be
questions.
afraid.
It's yeah.
Don't be afraid.
No,
You know,
it's interesting. I think it was 2018, 2017 or 2018. Carol Oliver, who used to have my position at Woodard,
mhm.
she did all this, she curated all the sessions. And she called me up and she said, Heather, I want you to teach a class on failure. And now, I'm a technical trainer. That was kind of what I did. I was very comfortable showing people how to do really cool things in QuickBooks and Zapier. And she said, I want you to do a session on failure. And I said, oh, I don't know. I don't know about that. I don't know about getting up in front of all my peers and talking about all the ways that I've messed things up throughout my career. That seems, really hard. And honestly, it was one of the most rewarding sessions I did. It pushed me so far out of my comfort zone. And really, I think it allowed me to kind of move to that next level of like thought
Right.
leadership within the
And
practice.
because
But
you said you failed,
yeah,
failure is not fair unless you stop.
right.
You just learn one more thing, and then I'd sit here going, "Heather failed, but
And
you got up again."
that was the magic, Deborah, was that I had at least 10 people come up to me, many of them in tears,
Mhm.
telling me I thought I was the only one.
Exactly.
And that
Exactly.
it was. And so the fact that they heard from me, who some of them, they saw me do the Zapier stuff and, held me, to a high esteem, to hear about the ways that I've messed things up during my 30-year career. They
Exactly.
were like, they felt less alone. And they said, well, if she can do it and fail and get back up and
Yeah.
keep going, then I can too.
It's how do you come back from that stuff? In fact, I just
Right.
did a LinkedIn. I did on LinkedIn. I was going to audition for a play.
I saw that. That's exciting.
Well, then I didn't get the part. I wrote down I didn't get the part. That got more interaction than the fact that I did try out because I'm like, oh, well, you didn't get the part is you don't hit home runs on everything.
Right.
How do
You
you
got to
come
keep
back
doing
from
it.
that? Okay. I did it. I mean, the win for me was the doing.
Right.
I didn't, but I thought, okay, I didn't get the part. It's okay. I'm still alive. I'll try again.
That's right. You know,
So
there's an interesting fact when we go back to hard, difficult conversations is that one of the reasons we don't start them is there's that fear of
mhm.
confrontation, right? That's it.
But you don't have
And
to
there's
confront them with it. That's
no,
the fallacy. I think that if it's difficult, doesn't mean you have to be nasty, mean, or can be
no,
confrontational. You
yeah.
know,
But the other thing is that they say that fight or flight sensation that comes when you're sitting down to have a really hard conversation. You know what I'm talking about? Your heart starts beating a little bit faster.
mhm.
Maybe your body temperature rises a little bit and you're like, this is going to be so difficult. It's going to be so hard. They've done studies. And once you start the conversation, on an average, that only lasts for 8 minutes. So when you start the conversation and the initial like kind of difficult back and forth typically lasts for 8 minutes, and then your body physically releases that fight or flight, and you can start to kind of dig into the conversation. So I think
Right.
that if you can think about the fact that 8 minutes goes by pretty darn quickly, and if you can just get on the other side of that 8 minutes, you can get a lot of
And you can always start. This is
productivity.
really hard for me to talk about
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
you're important to me, and then
Yes,
you go in,
that's right.
and they'll feel empathy for it towards you,
Yeah,
and you're not going to like what I have to say,
yeah.
but I still love you, or
Mhm.
whatever you say to a
Whatever it
client,
is. Well, I'm
whatever it is.
excited about this session. Thank you,
Yeah, me
Deborah.
too.
When you submitted it, I said this is something that I think
Oh,
everyone.
I thought it was because I had my name on it, you liked it.
That too. That too. I love you, Deb. You're great. Awesome. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me on
My
the Woodard
pleasure.
Report podcast. And we're really excited to see you in June, everybody. You can check out Deborah's session on at scalingnewheights.com. Just
I'm
click
gonna be
on
the
the
main
session.
stage too.
That's right. You are going to be on the main stage for the second time. This is your second time. The first time you were in the choir with
I was in the
Nicole.
choir.
You were in the
Yes.
choir.
Yeah,
Yes.
you asked
So
me to do that. I'm like, "Okay, I'm on the main at least I got on that main
exactly. So
stage."
yes.
You know,
So Deb's going to be on the main stage as a panelist as part of Liz Scott's panel on using AI in your practice. So we're going to be hearing about your journey on how you guys have embedded AI within your firm. So Deborah, as always, love having you on the, love
thank you,
having you in
Heather.
the community. Excited to have you on the podcast, and I'll see you in June.
Great.
And
See you
to
then. Goodbye,
all
everybody.
right,
Thanks for having me.
and to our listeners, we'll see you next time on the Woodard Report podcast.